Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen. We're back on part 2 of our study guide. We went through the first 10 questions. Now we're going to go through the next 10 questions. All right, so number 11 states which is equivalent to log x to the third slash y. That's actually x to the third divided by y. So remember, if you notice, you look at your answer choices, you notice you have 2 logs instead of 1. So this is an expansion problem. So the first thing you want to do is you want to change it to log x to the third. And since we're dividing, we're going to subtract. Remember, keep the same order. X to the third goes first, y goes second. All right? So then now, the last thing we need to do is any exponents need to be moved to the to the front of the log. So 3 goes here. Now there's a invisible 1 with our y value, but putting a 1 in the front is not going to change anything, so we're going to leave it like that. So our final answer is 3 log x minus log y. And so that should be answer choice D. So remember, when expanding, you move, if you're dividing, you subtract. If you're multiplying, you add. And then if you have any exponents, they move to the front of the log they're attached to. 3 was attached to log x, so it goes in front of that log. If we had a number in front of as an exponent for y, that would have moved in front of that log attached to the log y. All right, number 12. All right, we have 2 tables here. It says tables for f and g are given. Evaluate f composed of g of 5. All right, so again, we're just going to go through, so just follow along as I'm talking. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the G chart, which is the chart on the right. You're going to look for the number under 5, which is in row X. Okay? If you look at row X and you look at the number 5, you notice below it is the number 10, where you see G parentheses X. All right? You're then going to take that 10 that was under the 5 on the G column, and you're now going to go to the F chart, and you're going to go to the X column, X row again. You look for 10. This time you're going to go to the F of X row, which if you look at the bottom of it, you notice it's 10 again. So number 12 should be the letter C, as in Captain Marvel or Captain America. All right. Number 13 says that a food truck, the distribution of the number of seconds it takes for a cashier to process an order is approximately normal, with a mean of 276 seconds and a standard deviation of 38 seconds. Which of the following is closest to the proportion of orders that are processed in less than 240 seconds? And you see in parentheses, use the z-score chart. So now when we find the z-value, we then have to use our purple sheet to actually find out what the probability is. All right, so again, your z-score formula is x minus mu over sigma. All right, our x here is 240. Our mu, or mean, is 276. And we're going to divide that by 38. All right, so when we do that, we get negative 0.947 or 0.9495. All right, so then we're going to look at our z-score chart. And again, on the negative side, if you look at 0.9 on the left column, and on the top row, you find 0.04, you'll notice where the intersect is 0.711. Now, if you rounded to negative 0.95, you would still do the negative 0.9 in the left column, and in the right, and then the row on the row on top, you would look for 0.05, and you would get, I think, 0.1736 or 35. So all you're going to do is find the value here, which is A is in Ant-Man. All right, because basically 0.17 is rounded, is 0.711 rounded down, and 0.1735 is also rounded down. All right. So number 14, it says in a recent poll, a politician has a 50% approval rating. She wants to develop a 95% confidence interval where the true population parameter resides. The margin of error for this confidence interval is 5% points. Which of the following would be the confidence interval given by the margin of error? And if you look at that, so on this one, this is just like the other margin of error we had. You're going to take 50%, again, ignoring the 95% because that's just saying that she's 95% confident that the data will fall between these two ranges. You're now going to take your mean, and you're going to subtract 5%, and you're going to add 5%. When you do that, you get 45%, and over on the right side, you're going to get 55%. So the only answer choice that has that is the letter C, all right? So remember that don't ignore the 95%. That's just saying how confident or how strong the evidence is, okay? We're not worried about the actual numbers. All right? We're not worried about the 95%. All right, 15. All right, Tammy flipped a coin 100 times. She got 63 heads and 37 tails. Which statement best describes the situation? So again, I'm going to just tell you what the correct answer is, which is C, as in Captain Marvel. And it states that 63% is the experimental probability of getting a head on a coin flip in this situation. Remember, she got 63 heads and 37 tails. All right, that anytime you flip a coin, it's your experimental probability. If I were just saying what was the probability of her getting heads or tails, then that would be the theoretical. So that's why A is not correct, because 32 is not the experimental probability. 63 is, all right, of getting a head on a coin flip in this situation. B says that 63 is the theoretical. I just said flipping the coin is actually experimental, not theoretical. And then lastly, D says 68% is the theoretical probability. So again, this is just a different percent, and it's talking about the tail, which tails was 37%. So it would have been 37% if we were talking about a experimental probability of getting a tail. All right. Number 16, if you notice, these questions are from the first test, so you should have remembered these from the first test. It says a high school principal wants to test the overall mood in his school. He stops the first 20 students who come into the office one morning and asks them to rate their high school experience on a scale of 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. The average response is 2.2, and the principal concludes that his school's mood is poor. The principal conclusion is actually D, invalid, since students were chosen by convenience. All right. A is not the best answer because it's based on too small a sample. Yeah, we don't really know how many kids there are. It may be a school of 400 kids versus a school of 1,200. So it's possible that that's the case. But again, that's not the one best answer. B, it says it's valid since students were chosen randomly. Well, yeah, you could say that in the sense that they were, I'm sure he may have picked maybe every third student, every fourth student. So there is that possibility. But again, that's not the best answer here. C, it says it's unfair since he's the one running the school. Well, he may have some intimidation factor if you want to, and the students may feel intimidated and don't want to answer honestly, or either in this case, they're answering too honestly and everything else. So not necessarily. So D is the one best answer because the students were chosen by convenience. Again, only if you think about our school, how many people come through the front entrance if they're driving or they ride the bus? He's going to miss a lot of students like that. So you don't want to pick, again, that would create some bias because he's only pulling the students that come by his office. So D is the correct answer. All right, 17. It says initial investment of 500 earns 3% interest compounded continuously. Assume T equals 0 is the time of the initial investment. What is the range of the function that would find P of T, the amount of money in the account after time T? All right, here the answer choice is B. All right, A is not the best answer because it's saying negative infinity, positive infinity because the graph of the function extends infinitely to the left and to the right. Well, we got to talk about this. You can't start off with negative money in terms of if you have an initial investment of $500, that's not negative. So we can't have a negative value in our problem because we're not talking about expenditures and all that stuff. So we're just talking about just interest added to our initial investment. All right. C is not the correct one because it says 0, infinity because time starts at 0 and increases indefinitely. That's true, but the first value in our problem is always going to be our X value. And our Y value will always be, or that's our output. So we're not going to start at 0. We're going to start at time at 0, yes, but not at $0. Our X value is not going to start at 0 because we're actually starting with $500. You can't add interest to nothing, as they say. And then lastly, it's not D because it says the graph of the function increasing infinitely has a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. Again, we're going back to that same premise that it's not going to, and actually the asymptote is going to be at 500 because it's not going to go below 500 because that's our initial value. Remember our lab where we said that what was the value that the temperature would never go below, and that was the initial temperature in the room temperature. So that's why it will never go below that value. That's our asymptote. All right, so B is the correct one because, again, 500 is our starting point, so that's our first X value, and Y will be infinite, in a theoretical sense. I mean, eventually you will take the money out of the bank, so there will be a finite amount, but if we never took the money out, it would be infinite. 18. It says pH measures the acidity of a substance and is described by the equation pH equals negative log H plus, where H plus is the concentration of hydrogen ions. A solution has an H plus concentration of 1 times 10 to the negative 2. What is its pH? All right, so here all you're going to do is you're going to put in Desmos, not the pH part, but you're going to put negative log, parentheses 1 times 10 to the negative 2. When you put this part in Desmos, you should wind up with just 2. So that's our answer choice, and that's going to be answer choice B. So again, on the test, just take what we give you, negative log, and the scientific notation we give you, put that in parentheses, and push enter, and whatever number you get there, that's going to be your pH. All right, 19. It says pH measures the acidity of a substance is described by the equation pH equals negative log H plus, where H plus is the concentration of hydrogen ions. A solution has a hydrogen ion concentration of 4 times 10 to the negative 1. Determine if it's basic, neutral, or acidic. Again, just like on question 18, we're going to plug into the calculator negative log, parentheses 4 times 10 to the negative 1. All right? So when we do that, we wind up with 0.3979. All right? So you remember that, and I'll just write this out to the side, 0 to 6.9 is acidic. If it's exactly 7, it's neutral. And then if it's 7.1 to 14, it's basic. So if you notice our answer, it was 0.379. That means it's acidic, so it should be C as in Captain America. All right? And then our last one for this video will be number 20, one of the easiest ones we'll do. Basically, it's the same question stem of pH measures the acidity of a substance and is described by the equation pH equals negative log H plus. All right, it says complete the equation that can be solved to find the hydrogen ion concentration of a substance with pH 4. All this question is asking you to do is to not solve it, but just complete the equation that can be used. So we're just going to say, in the blank, whatever pH we give you, which in this case is 4, is going to be our answer. So our answer here is C, because it's asking you just to fill in the blank. It's not asking you to solve it. Okay? It's not asking you to solve it. So here, you're just going to say the letter C, number 4, which is letter C. All right? So this will be in the part 2, so stay tuned for part 3. So make sure you watch these in sequence, just so you don't get confused.